Okay, so yesterday we talked about, I gave a little personal information. You know, I just wanted to set people's minds straight about my position. And of course, you know, the encounter that I had with the Supreme Being in my grandmother's cotton field, it was on the emotional side. You see, the Holy Ghost can move on the emotional side. And whereas at that time I did not have the understanding that I have now from a scientific perspective to let me see the Supreme Being or God from the viewpoint of science, that emotional encounter that I had with the Supreme Being was enough to convince me that he's real, you see. But that is just one particular level, you know, for people to have some idea of the existence of the Supreme Being. It's good, and this is basically what happened when God gave the law, His word to people of primordial period that had a mindset that only dealt with superstition and the supernatural, you see, in the manner in which He did. So those people could have an understanding of Him, even though they could not see Him from a scientific perspective because they didn't know that much about science then. You see, but today, now I have a better understanding through my understanding of a little science of the existence of God, you see. But so today we'll go right ahead on with the 24 elders. And understanding that, see, John, he was in the spirit when he saw these characters that exist in the kingdom of heaven. The Bible says he was in the spirit. So we talked about the four beasts. Now, it also existed in the kingdom was 24 elders. We have those same 24 elders existing in our conscious mind. Each conscious mind constitutes a kingdom. In order for the kingdom of heaven to emerge in the conscious mind, we have got to pattern the conscious mind after the kingdom by recognizing the forces or characters that John saw while he was in the spirit existing in the kingdom of heaven, recognizing that those forces are also in our conscious mind. And we come in touch with that, as I said just in the section before, dealing with the force of reason. Once the force of reasoning that sit on the throne within your conscious mind, in each one of our conscious mind, we have a force of reasoning that's set on the throne. Once it begins to reason about these things and recognize these forces, then the kingdom of heaven will begin to manifest. The force of reason will carry out the activity necessary for the kingdom of heaven to begin to manifest within the conscious mind, patterned after the kingdom of heaven. And so you have those 24 elders. Now, to start there, we will first look at the conscious mind of a person and how it's built up. Science knows that we got 12 cranial nerves. See, 12 cranial nerves that are associated with the brain and the conscious mind of a person. There's another law that says that there's two sides to every existence. No matter what existence that you see, there are always two sides. You see, how could there be a head without a tail? How would we know what heat was if we didn't have some concept of cold? What would right be without wrong? And for that matter, what significance would Christ be if there was no Antichrist? Every existence has an opposite side. So those 12 cranial nerves that we have in our make up our brain and conscious mind, each one of those 12 cranial nerves has a positive side and a negative side. So when you add those positive side and negative side of those 12 cranial nerves together, you have 24 posts. You see, the 12 cranial nerves, they're different from the other nerves, cells that you have in your body. This is another story, but we'll talk a little bit about it here. You see, you got the other cells in your body are under the law of carnality. They're under the law of carnality, which is associated with the principle of the survival of the fittest, self-preservation. If I eat an apple, the nutrient goes inside of my body. Those cells inside of my body has no concept of sharing. So, okay, you have some over here muscle, you have some over here blood cells. You know, they have no concept of sharing to provide for the existence of the whole. They only have the principle of self-preservation. Get as much as you can. Never mind the rest of the cells, you know. So the physical flesh is under the law of carnality. The Bible tells us that. Paul tells us that. He said, I see in my memory another spirit that lusts against the laws of my mind. You see. So the flesh is under carnal laws. And then you have the 12 cranial nerves associated with the brain and the conscious mind. They assist the brain and the conscious mind in bringing in information that builds ideals and schools of thought. It's interesting. So see, when you start looking at those 12, it's the same thing about the 12 tribes of Israel, you see, within the spiritual nation of Israel. You see. They are concerned with spiritual development, whereas the other aspects of the material social part of social development are concerned with the development of materialism. Just as the cells in your body are associated with and attend to the maintenance and the development of the material aspects of your body, whereas the 12 cranial nerves attend to and are related to the conscious mind, which build ideals and understanding. So they're different levels. You see, you got there 2 different levels there. So each one of those cranial nerves has a positive side and a negative side. It has to be, because science tells us that every existence has 2 sides. And so one post on the cranial nerve deal with all the information that associated with the positive side, and the other side of that cranial nerve is a post that deal with all the information with the negative side. And any data that coming into the conscious mind, or go into the making of the conscious mind, has to have 2 sides also. Any information, any subject you deal with, will have a positive side and a negative side. See, that's a natural phenomenon for our objects to all existence to have a opposite side. You know, it's a natural phenomenon. It permeates all existence. You see. So we know that those 12 cranial nerves have the same thing. They have 2 posts. So if you take those 2 posts for each of the 12 cranial nerves, making up the 12 cranial nerves, you got 24 posts. Now each one of those posts, the cranial nerve deal with data. So you got your data coming in through the 12 cranial nerves, having both positive and negative associated with the data. And so each one of those positive and negative data volume of information constitute an area of inquiry.